two kings separated by thousands of years. One a Zonai warrior who founded Hyrule, the other a Hylian sage who saved it. Both named Rauru, both wielders of light, both leaders of the sages who sealed Ganondorf. This connection isn't coincidence, it's destiny written into the very fabric of the Zelda universe. And understanding Rauru's story means understanding the rise and fall of the most powerful race to ever walk Hyrule. The Zonai stand as one of the most enigmatic civilizations in Zelda lore. First glimpsed in Breath of the Wild through crumbling ruins and mysterious architecture scattered across Faron, these hints of an ancient people sparked countless theories. But Tears of the Kingdom pulled back the curtain, revealing the Zonai's true nature and their tragic fate. According to the lore presented in Tears of the Kingdom, the Zonai were described as descendants of gods. This divine heritage manifested in their extraordinary magical abilities and their possession of artifacts called secret stones, crystalline treasures said to have originated with the gods themselves. These stones could amplify the innate powers of those who wielded them, transforming capable magic users into forces of nature. The Zonai's physical appearance reflects their divine origins. They're beast-like beings who walk upright, covered in fur and scales, with muzzles more akin to dogs or goats than humans. But their most distinctive features hint at something greater. Their ears stretch even longer than those of Hylians, who are said to have pointed ears to hear the voices of the gods. The Zonai's extended ears suggest an even closer connection to the divine. Perhaps most striking is the third eye positioned on their foreheads. This isn't an organ for sight in the traditional sense. According to the lore, this eye activates when the Zonai reach enlightenment and channel their magical abilities. It's a physical manifestation of their spiritual power, marking them as beings who exist on a plane between the mortal and divine. The history of the Zonai stretches back into the distant past, long before the founding of Hyrule. At some point in this ancient era, the Zonai left the surface world entirely. They ascended to the skies, building a civilization upon floating islands above the clouds. The reasons for this exodus remain unclear. Perhaps they sought isolation to perfect their magical arts, or perhaps they were fleeing some threat on the surface. What's certain is that the Zonai used their advanced understanding of magic and technology to create wonders. They constructed elemental temples capable of controlling and tempering the environment around them. They built constructs, autonomous machines programmed to carry out various tasks. Some were simple labor units. Others were sophisticated soldiers designed to defend Zonai sites from intruders. But the Zonai's greatest creations would become their downfall. Among their constructs existed an elite class, the Forbidden Constructs. Unlike the mindless automatons that performed basic tasks, these were self-aware weapons, humanoid machines possessed of true consciousness. The Zonai had poured their magical knowledge into these warriors, creating beings capable of directing destructive power far beyond what mortal soldiers could achieve. The tragedy that befell the Zonai echoes forward through time. In a grim preview of the great calamity that would devastate Hyrule thousands of years later, the Forbidden Constructs went berserk. The very weapons the Zonai had created to protect them turned against their makers. In a storm of mechanical fury and devastating power, Zonai civilization collapsed. A divine people, descended from gods, exterminated by their own creations. By the time of Hyrule Warriors' Age of Imprisonment, which depicts the imprisoning war from Tears of the Kingdom, only two Zonai remain, siblings Rauru and Mineru. They represent the last remnants of a once great civilization, carrying the weight of their people's legacy and the knowledge of their tragic end. Both siblings display magical abilities that hint at just how powerful the Zonai must have been at their height. Mineru, the elder of the two, possesses the extraordinary ability to separate her spirit from her physical body, a technique that proves crucial during the imprisoning war. Her expertise lies in understanding Zonai technology, studying the constructs and devices her ancestors created, much like how Princess Zelda would study ancient Sheikah technology millennia later. But Rauru's power surpasses even his sister's. His innate magic manifests as light, a pure, radiant force capable of banishing or repelling evil. This isn't merely offensive magic, it's purifying energy that can cleanse corruption at its source. When amplified by his secret stone, which he wears on his wrist, Rauru's light powers become nearly unmatched. The abilities Rauru demonstrates extend beyond pure light magic. He can perform what are described as Zonai arts, techniques created and perfected by his people during their civilization's peak. These include Ultra Hand, which allows manipulation of objects at a distance, Ascend, enabling vertical travel through solid surfaces, and Fuse, which combines objects to create new tools and weapons. These aren't just convenient tricks, they represent fundamental magical principles mastered by the Zonai race. The era before Hyrule's founding was a dark time. According to the lore presented in Age of Imprisonment, the land was plagued by evil spirits known as Shades. These dark entities appeared when the land was suffering, forming from a corruption similar to the gloom that Ganondorf would later wield. The Shades tormented the various peoples trying to survive in this harsh environment. Hylians, Zora, Rito, and Gerudo all struggled against this malevolent force. Rauru took it upon himself to purge these evil spirits. Using his light powers, he traveled the land hunting Shades, banishing them wherever they appeared. But Rauru understood that simply destroying these entities wasn't enough. They would return unless something prevented their reemergence. So in each place he cleansed, Rauru installed a Shrine of Light, a permanent ward against the darkness. This mission, which came to be known as the Pilgrimage of Light, gained Rauru a powerful ally. Sonia, a Hylian priestess, possessed her own remarkable gift, innate control over time itself. Where Rauru could purify corruption with light, Sonia could ensure that protection endured far into the future. Their powers complemented each other perfectly, and together they traveled the land, cleansing evil and establishing lasting safeguards. The relationships Rauru forged during this pilgrimage extended beyond his partnership with Sonia. He gained the trust of the various peoples struggling to survive in this harsh era. The Zora respected his power and purpose. The Rito valued his protection. The Hylians saw him as a savior. Even many among the Gerudo, though their chieftain remained distant, recognized the security Rauru's efforts provided. This popularity and the stability Rauru brought eventually led to something unprecedented. The peoples of the land looked to Rauru and Sonia as leaders, protectors who had proven their dedication and power. From this collective trust emerged the Kingdom of Hyrule, a nation founded not through conquest but through unity, with Rauru as its first king and Sonia as its first queen. This is why when Princess Zelda travels back through time in Tears of the Kingdom, Rauru describes himself as Hyrule's first king. He speaks literally and truthfully. He founded the kingdom that bears this name. His Hyrule, built on cooperation between races and protected by light magic and shrines, represents the original vision of what this nation could be. But Rauru's place in Zelda lore extends beyond this single era. Longtime fans of the series immediately noticed the name when Tears of the Kingdom revealed the Zonai King's identity, because there's another Rauru in Zelda history, a Rauru who appeared in Ocarina of Time, the game that defined the 3D Zelda formula and established much of the series' foundational lore. Ocarina of Time's Rauru is introduced when Link pulls the Master Sword from its pedestal. Unable to wield the blade as a child, Link is sealed within the sacred realm for 7 years, emerging as an adult. When he awakens, Rauru explains what has occurred. He reveals himself as the Sage of Light, one of the ancient sages who built the Temple of Time to protect the Triforce. This Rauru grants Link the Light Medallion and instructs him to awaken the remaining 5 sages, Forest, Fire, Water, Shadow, and Spirit, who together must stand against Ganondorf. Despite his crucial role in the story, Ocarina's Rauru remains mysterious. His backstory is never explained. His connection to Hyrule's founding is hinted at but never clarified. He simply exists as an ancient, powerful sage who has waited for the hero of time. The parallels between these two Raurus are impossible to ignore. Both lead groups of sages. Both represent the element of light. Both stand in opposition to Ganondorf's darkness. The connection runs deeper than mere coincidence. It's reinforced by visual design. King Rauru wears a pendant around his neck that closely resembles Ocarina of Time's Sage of Light, with white stones forming a distinctive pattern like a mustache on the older Rauru's face. The timeline placement of King Rauru's era has sparked intense debate among fans. Tears of the Kingdom's approach to continuity proved controversial, presenting what seems like Hyrule's founding, despite the series having previous games that showed the kingdom's establishment. Three main theories have emerged to explain this apparent contradiction. The first theory suggests this era takes place after Skyward Sword, but before Ocarina of Time, making King Rauru truly the first king in Zelda's chronology. This would position the imprisoning war shown in Age of Imprisonment as an ancient conflict that predates all other games. The problem with this interpretation is the numerous contradictions with established lore about Hyrule's founding and the presence of races that shouldn't exist yet. The second theory proposes this occurs after all previous Zelda games, but before Breath of the Wild. In this interpretation, Rauru didn't found the original Hyrule, but instead established a new kingdom after the original had been completely destroyed and forgotten over thousands of years. This would explain why the geography and history don't align with previous games, because this literally is a different Hyrule, built in the same general location. The third theory suggests the Wild Era exists outside the established timeline entirely, as a soft reboot with no direct connection to previous games. This would mean King Rauru's Hyrule and Ocarina's Hyrule exist in separate continuities that share similar elements but aren't meant to connect literally. Regardless of which theory proves correct, the relationship between the two Raurus likely follows a pattern well established in Zelda lore: reincarnation. The series has always featured cyclical elements, with the same spirits and essences appearing across different eras. Link, Zelda, and Ganon are the most obvious examples, each appearing countless times throughout history, different individuals but connected by destiny and spirit. But reincarnation in Zelda extends beyond the main trio. Characters like Beetle, Dampé, and Malon appear across multiple games, despite the centuries separating their appearances. They're never explicitly the same person, but they share names, personalities, and roles. Epona herself reappears, despite horses not being immortal. Tingle shows up in eras separated by vast stretches of time. The key precedent comes from Ocarina of Time itself. Keapora Gabora, the mysterious owl who guides Link throughout his adventure, is described by a gossip stone as the reincarnation of an ancient sage. Hyrule Historia confirms this ancient sage was Rauru himself. The Sage of Light had previously lived, died, and been reborn as the owl, establishing that Rauru's spirit can take different forms across different eras. This pattern extends even further back. In Skyward Sword, Zelda's father is Gaepora, headmaster of the Knight Academy. He bears an uncanny resemblance to Rauru from Ocarina of Time, sharing similar facial features and design elements. While never explicitly confirmed as the same spirit, the visual connection suggests these characters share an essence that manifests across Hyrule's history. What this means is that the Zonai King Rauru and the Hylian Sage Rauru are almost certainly the same spirit reincarnated across different eras. They take different physical forms, one a Zonai with beast-like features, the other a Hylian Elder. They live in different times, separated by potentially thousands of years. They may not remember their previous lives or consciously recognize their connection, but their essence remains consistent. Both serve as leaders of the sages. Both wield light as their primary power. Both stand as bulwarks against Ganondorf's darkness. Both make sacrifices to protect Hyrule and ensure its survival. The spirit of Rauru, like Link in Zelda, appears throughout history whenever Hyrule faces its darkest hours, a guardian who leads others in the fight against evil. Understanding this pattern helps explain why Nintendo would reuse this specific name. It's not lazy writing or an oversight, it's a deliberate connection emphasizing the cyclical nature of Zelda's universe. Just as courage, wisdom, and power cycle through time, so too does the spirit of the Light Sage who unites others against darkness. The story of King Rauru reaches its tragic climax during the Imprisoning War, depicted in both Tears of the Kingdom's flashback memories and fully playable in Age of Imprisonment. This conflict would shape Hyrule's fate for millennia, and Rauru stands at its center. The seeds of war were planted when Ganondorf, chieftain of the Gerudo, pledged loyalty to Rauru's kingdom. This alliance came after Ganondorf sent forces to attack Hyrule's capital, an assault he later claimed was launched by traitors within his ranks. He presented himself as a leader who had purged these dissidents and now sought peace through cooperation. Rauru didn't believe Ganondorf's story. Looking into the Gerudo chieftain's eyes, he saw the darkness lurking there, the ambition and hunger for power. But Rauru made a critical decision born from confidence in his own abilities. He allowed Ganondorf to stay in Hyrule Castle for months, keeping the potential threat close where he could monitor it. This decision revealed something crucial about Rauru's character. According to the story presented in Age of Imprisonment, Ganondorf himself calls Rauru arrogant, and the Demon King isn't entirely wrong. Rauru believed in his own power, in his ability to control the situation. After all, with his secret stone amplifying his light magic, Rauru was likely the most powerful being in the land. What could Ganondorf, even with his dangerous ambitions, truly accomplish against such might? The answer came in blood and betrayal. Using a puppet construct created from shadows, Ganondorf managed to distract Rauru's attention. In that crucial moment, Ganondorf struck at the kingdom's heart, not Rauru himself, but Queen Sonia. He murdered Rauru's wife and stole her secret stone, gaining access to her time powers. With two secret stones, his own and Sonia's, Ganondorf underwent a terrible transformation. He became the Demon King, his already formidable powers multiplied exponentially. Where Rauru's strength came from light, Ganondorf commanded darkness and gloom, corrupting energy that could decay anything it touched. The balance of power shifted catastrophically in an instant. The imprisoning war that followed devastated the young kingdom. Ganondorf seized Hyrule Castle and unleashed an army of monsters across the land. 4 archfiends served as commanders of his forces, spreading destruction to every corner of Hyrule. The kingdom Rauru had worked so hard to build, the unity he had fostered between different peoples, all of it burned under the Demon King's assault. Throughout the conflict, Rauru wrestled with crushing guilt. His confidence had led to Sonia's death. His belief that he could control Ganondorf had resulted in the near total destruction of his kingdom. Ganondorf's accusation of arrogance haunted him because it contained truth. Rauru had overestimated his ability to manage the threat, and thousands paid the price for his miscalculation. But Rauru refused to let guilt paralyze him. He rallied the leaders of Hyrule's allied peoples to stand against the Demon King. Rafika, elder of the Rito, Kia, queen of the Zora, Agriston, chief of the Gorons, and Ardi, a Gerudo warrior who had opposed Ganondorf's violent ambitions and now replaced him as her people's leader. These champions, along with Mineru and Princess Zelda, who had been sent back in time from the distant future, became the new sages, warriors empowered by secret stones to fight alongside Rauru. The final confrontation took place deep beneath Hyrule, in the depths where ancient Zonai ruins still stood. These structures possessed unique properties that could amplify light magic, giving Rauru and his allies an advantage. But even with the terrain in their favor, even with all the sages fighting together, the Demon King's power proved overwhelming. He shrugged off their most powerful attacks, his mastery of darkness countering their every strategy. Rauru had planned for this possibility. If the sages couldn't defeat Ganondorf, then he would need to be contained instead.
And Rauru knew a technique that could accomplish this, but it required the ultimate sacrifice. As the battle reached its climax, as Zelda's time powers failed to hold Ganondorf back, Rauru made his move. He vanished from view, reappearing directly behind the Demon King. Before Ganondorf could react, Rauru's hand shot forward, slamming into the Demon King's chest. Light erupted from the point of contact as the symbol of power blazed into existence. Masterworks describes this technique as a heart grab. Rauru didn't simply seal Ganondorf from the outside, he reached into the Demon King's very essence, directly grasping the darkness in Ganondorf's heart. Using his own body as a conduit, Rauru began purifying that darkness, functioning like the shrines of light he had established across Hyrule, but on a personal, intimate scale. This technique would hold Ganondorf in stasis as long as Rauru remained. The light continuously purified the darkness being drawn from the Demon King's heart, preventing him from using his powers or even moving. But the process couldn't be stopped or transferred. Rauru would remain locked in this embrace until something disrupted the seal. With this final act, Rauru ended the imprisoning war. Ganondorf was contained. The kingdom was saved. Hyrule would endure for thousands of years, growing and evolving, facing new threats, but surviving each one. Rauru gave everything: his life, his chance to see his kingdom flourish, his ability to rest, to protect the people he had sworn to lead. Though never stated explicitly in Tears of the Kingdom or Age of Imprisonment, Masterworks confirms that Rauru and Sonia had children. These descendants inherited the throne, continuing the royal bloodline that would eventually lead to King Rome and Princess Zelda in the present day. The kingdom Rauru founded would be passed down through his family, each generation carrying his legacy forward.
For millennia, Rauru's seal held. Deep beneath Hyrule Castle, and a chamber hidden from the world above, the first king maintained his eternal vigil. Time passed. Kingdoms rose and fell. Heroes appeared to battle new incarnations of evil. Through it all, Rauru remained locked in his struggle with the Demon King, preventing Ganondorf from threatening the world he had loved. But seals, even those powered by divine magic, are not truly eternal. The great calamity that devastated Hyrule 100 years before Breath of the Wild had consequences that reached deep into the earth. The massive release of malice and the upheaval it caused disturbed Rauru's seal, weakening it gradually over the following century. By the time Link and Zelda discover the imprisoning chamber in Tears of the Kingdom, Rauru's body has withered almost completely. Only his arm remains intact, still pressed against Ganondorf's chest, still channeling light to hold back darkness. For over 10,000 years, Rauru fought this battle, alone in the darkness, his consciousness perhaps long faded, but his purpose enduring through sheer will and magical power. When the seal finally breaks and the Demon King reawakens, causing the upheaval that devastates Hyrule once more, Rauru makes one final contribution. As Link falls into the depths, as the ground collapses and death approaches, Rauru's arm catches him. Using what little remains of his power and essence, Rauru fuses his arm to Link's body, replacing the arm that had been destroyed by Ganondorf's gloom. This fusion gives Link access to the Zonai arts: Ultra Hand, Fuse, Ascend, and eventually Recall. These aren't new powers Link learned, they're Rauru's abilities, performed through Rauru's hand, now part of Link's body. Throughout Tears of the Kingdom, Rauru accompanies Link in the most literal sense possible. When Link uses Ultra Hand, it's Rauru's power at work. Every time Fuse creates a new weapon, it's Rauru's technique being employed. Every Zonai seal that opens responds to Rauru's lingering authority. The first king of Hyrule stands beside the hero fighting to save his kingdom one final time. The victory Link achieves over Ganondorf represents Rauru's ultimate vindication. The guilt he carried for allowing the Demon King to gain power, for Sonia's death and the kingdom's devastation, is finally answered. Thousands of years after making his sacrifice, Rauru's seal and subsequent aid to Link ensure Ganondorf's permanent defeat. The arrogance that led to tragedy becomes the determination that achieves salvation. Rauru's story embodies core themes that define the Zelda series. The cyclical nature of history, where the same conflicts and characters reappear across eras. The power of sacrifice, where heroes give everything to protect others. The importance of unity, bringing different peoples together against common threats. And the endurance of hope, maintaining faith even through millennia of struggle. As the Zonai King, Rauru founded Hyrule on principles of cooperation and light. As the Sage of Light, Rauru led other sages in protecting the sacred realm. As Kaepora Gaebora, Rauru guided the hero of time toward his destiny. And as a spirit merged with Link's body, Rauru helped save Hyrule one final time. Different forms, different eras, but always the same essential purpose, protecting the kingdom and its people from darkness. The lore of Rauru spans the entire breadth of Hyrule's history, from the kingdom's founding to its salvation in the present day. Understanding his story means understanding the foundations of the Zelda universe itself, the cyclical battles between light and darkness, the reincarnation of heroes and sages, and the sacrifices required to protect what matters most. King Rauru's legacy lives on not just through the royal bloodline he established, but through every moment Link wields Zonai powers to overcome obstacles and defeat evil. The first King of Hyrule made the ultimate sacrifice to seal the Demon King. 10,000 years later, his hand helped the legendary hero finish what he started. And in the ages to come, when darkness threatens once more, the spirit of Rauru will surely appear again, in whatever form necessary, to lead the fight for Hyrule's survival. Because some purposes transcend time itself, and some lights can never truly be extinguished.